Hey everyone, this is James here from TDB, bringing you another In-Betweenisode. Today I am going to be doing kind of a special In-Betweenisode. Won't be drinking tea today, but going to be doing kind of a fun thought experiment. We release a lot of In-Betweenisodes here, so this is a little bit one different. I'm going to be talking about 4 interesting premium semi-aged Yiwu, or Manzhuan County, 6 famous mountain area teas that are available for under $3 a gram, telling what I would pick. Or at least what I would point out. So the premise is basically someone comes to me and they want to buy a really, really nice Yiwu tea, and I want to tell them where to go. And so why? Well, for fun. And so I wanted to cover a couple different brands and what kind of caught my eye here. I'm sure there are some teas that I am missing because I have not tried everything. Believe it or not, I've tried a lot, but I haven't tried everything. And there are some teas that I'm more familiar with. So those are obviously going to have a little bit of, I'll have a little bit of a bias towards those. I also own 3 of these teas. So, putting my money where my mouth is a little bit. So don't tell me you have a guy in Malaysia or there are back channels or Taiwan auctions or whatever. No, these are public facing sites that you can go onto, click the order button, and buy a cake that way. So places like the Jade Leaf, Teas We Like, Yunnan Sourcing, Puer UK even, Liquid Proust, Puer Guy, all these different places. Let's get into these. And again, these may not be the best buys overall, but these are kind of if with that thought experiment and that premise, these are the different teas that came to my mind. And this is also probably kind of a category of premium tea along with kind of Wuyi oolongs where I would be willing to spend up because I do really, really like these teas, and I think some of them are definitely worth consideration if they fit your budget. If not, no worries. I will probably do an episode with kind of more affordable, cheaper Yiwu at some point as well. A category that I probably drink from more than kind of these $1, $2, $3 gram juggernauts. So again, we're capping this at $3 a gram, which is a pretty high price point. We're talking about over $1,000 a cake, a little bit over $1,000 a cake for a 357 gram $3 tea. So first up, wanted to highlight the 2005 Banhaw Yiwu. And honestly, the Banhaw line, especially from 2004 to 2006 of Yiwu and Manzhuan, are all really, really great. I was recently on a blind panel, and I believe this tea got first or tied with first amongst them. And I think it's a really, really solid tea. This is probably most popularized by Teas We Like, who goes in and out of stock with it. Jade Leaf has also stocked it. I believe Puer Guy has at some point as well. So it's one that floats around, and you can definitely kind of track down. I did want to point out that this tea was really kind of introduced, as far as I understand it, to kind of the Western sphere by a guy named Pedro down in Brazil. So shout outs to him. He's one of those guys that is behind the scenes. Most people don't know who he is, but who has actually been kind of behind probably more than a couple teas that have really, really gotten popular. So anyways, what's good about these teas? Well, I think the depth of the teas and the quality is just really, really high. These are some of the teas that some people will be oh, it's about the energy and stuff like that. And sure, that's certainly part of it. I do think they are very enjoyable as kind of just conventional tea as well. Just really nice aftertaste. The whole profile of it is, I think, a good example of what a very, very stellar 6 famous mountains tea is. Next up, wanted to highlight the 2007 Yuanshi Ziwang. So this one sells from Tea Pals. I also own a cake of this. I haven't had it in quite a while, so probably should have had it before I did this, but you know what? It's really quality tea. I think Manzhuan did a very positive review of this probably about a decade ago at this point. You can buy samples of this from Puer Guy, I believe. Tea Pals is the one that sells whole cakes. I did confirm that. It's a little bit over $2 a gram here. It's an early 250 gram cake. And from what I remember, it's just a pretty strong Yiwu, one that isn't holding back as far as being very extra soft or anything like that. Still definitely an Yiwu tea, but one that kind of has a profile that's just a little bit punchier, a little bit more powerful. Okay, so next up I have the 2004 Dragon Tea House Yiwu. This is a interesting operation because it stands out quite a bit. A lot of these different operations that we're talking about that operated in this area, specifically around kind of the mid-aughts, Yuanshi, Banhaw, even Shizahao or Yuanshi. A lot of these places are Taiwanese based. A lot of them are specifically southern Taiwanese based. A lot of Tainan based merchants there. But Dragon Tea House is different. They are from Hong Kong, And I think once you try their teas, you're going to realize that it's a very, very different beast than a lot of these Taiwan boutiques. So shout outs to Teas We Like for really, really highlighting them. I think this is one of those brands that Manzhuan's really behind. I think you can find some early references about them there. And is one that I frankly find to be a little bit challenging at times, not in a bad way. I've always liked their tea, but it's just different. It's just very, very different. And they're a operation that focuses a lot on kind of like the traditional processing of the tea, heavy rolling and things like that. Again, I'm not a processing expert, but I think if you try their teas, the difference between this and something like a Chen Yuan Hao or Banhaw is not particularly subtle. So I do recommend people check them out. Their tea, especially as you get closer to the 2004 range, tends to get fairly pricey, but it's still a little bit cheaper than something like the Chen Yuan Hao Ziwang. I think it was around $500 for a 357 gram cake for the 2004. Sometimes the 2006 pops up. That one's a little bit cheaper as well. Okay, so next up, I wanted to talk about a Yuanshi Hao, because again, we want to talk about a bunch of different brands here. So I'm going to be talking about the Yuanshi Senlin Huangshan. Yeah. Anyways, the long name is what it's called. YSSL is also what I've seen it referred to as. And this is kind of an unusual YQH. If you think you've tried kind of the general YQH spectrum from one or two teas, like the Dingji or the Qizhong or something like that, I think you should try this tea too, because it's kind of an unusual one. I think it's definitely stronger. This one feels like it has some, like a little bit more wild or oomph to it, perhaps from kind of like those eastern Yiwu areas. It's supposedly a blend of Yiwu, Bohutang, and Tongqinghe. This one, like the Banhaw, is a 500 gram chunker, so they seem perhaps a little bit more expensive than they actually are. Both those are probably around $1.20 or $1.25 per gram. And it's really interesting tea. This was also in the blind panel, and it did fairly well. I think it came in kind of second or third, depending on who was ranking it in there. So yeah, this one's definitely, I think, one of the more interesting YQH teas, and definitely one I would recommend people try, even that are not necessarily a huge fan of YQH. This one doesn't taste the same, in my opinion, as some of the others. It still can have sort of that house storage note, but I think it is definitely set apart. Some people talk about it being extra strong. I think that a lot of that depends on kind of like your baseline for strong tea. Obviously, if you're having lots of Manghai Tea Factory tea or something like that, I don't think it's going to come across as that strong. But, compared to maybe the softer profile of like a Banhaw, Yiwu, or Manzhuan, maybe a little bit stronger, perhaps. So yes, those are the four. I wanted to just quickly run through some also ran. So there's a couple here I had flagged that, I just haven't tried, so I can't speak to them, but I have heard good things. One is the 2010 Yangqing Hao Shenyang Tiancheng. This is supposedly a very high quality Bohutang. I've seen some people shout this one out as being a bit of a standout. I haven't had it, or at least, well, I might have had it, but I don't remember it. So there you go. I can't necessarily endorse the tea from personal experience. Next up, you have the 2010 Chen Yuan Hao Mansang. This one is interesting. My apologies. The 2020 Chen Yuan Hao Mansang. So perhaps this one's a little too young to mention. But this one's sold by Liquid Proust as well as Pu'erhs, I think. So it's a interesting tea just because it's kind of a rare region to find. Mansong as well as Ibong, which is kind of the greater area that Sat is kind of known for the small leaf varietal. So that's one. I have actually a sample on the way. I haven't had it yet, so I can't necessarily endorse the tea. But it's definitely from kind of a hyped, acclaimed area. So that's one that I would certainly be curious to sample if I was someone just kind of spending money like that. Next up, and this one was probably the next closest to making the list, is the Chen Yuan Hao Shanzhong Yuanshi. This one has been sold by Teas We Like. It's bounced around, so I think you probably find it from Pu'er Guy at some point too. A tea that kind of cycles in and out of availability. I've kind of had a mixed relationship with this one, but I've ended up coming on the sound as I think I like it quite a bit. It's a 6 Famous Mountains blend. The storage of these really vary, so I think if you have one that's like a little bit on the drier side of things as far as Taiwan storage goes, I think you'll like this one a bit more. The first samples I had of this probably 7-8 years ago were definitely on the wetter side, so I was a little bit slower to come around. It was very, very muted as a result. So that's one that, I would definitely be curious about too. That one goes for, I think, about $500, $600, $700. for a 357 gram cake. So a little bit under $2 a gram there. Just a very interesting blend of Six Famous Mountains material. I'm sure there are some other very interesting Chen Yuanhao teas, but I think this one tends to be more available than some of the other ones. So, I mean, I could say like this Chen Yuanhao like Song Pin from 2003, but that one I almost never see it come up, so I'm not mentioning that tea specifically. And yeah, of course, Wistaria teas are very close. So something like the Zipin, if it was available, I think that's a tea that, you know, is very, very worthy, certainly the 2003 version, but I think is not available anymore. So, you know, I don't know if it would have quite made this list, but it's definitely an Yiwu. I would recommend just about anyone try if you can get your hands on it. Okay, so thank you for tuning in to this episode. Let me know if you liked it. You know, I suspect this is one of those episodes where some people are like, that's way too much money. There are some other people that are nodding along and more or less agree, but find out no new information. Or maybe you're exactly the target audience for this, someone that is, you know, has the money to spend on teas like this and is curious to try some of these. Then I would definitely recommend seeking these out. So these are just some of the different Yiwus I would point out. So we'll be covering kind of more the budget category at some point. I need to do some sampling for that because it's been a while since I have bought really kind of Yiwu tea, just Yiwu tea in general, actually. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Cheers. Really quickly wanted to just run down the list of where you can get them. Banhaw, Yiwu, or Manzhuan. You can find that from Teas We Like, as well as the Jade Leaf, maybe Pu'er Guy, Chen Yuanhao, Ziwang, Tea Pals. You can also find a sample. I think Pu'er Guy has it right now. I don't know if it will be available by the time this video is published. Dragon Tea House, I think you would go straight to Teas We Like for that one. And the Yuanshi, Senlin, Huangshan, the long name from 2005, Yangqing Hao. You can find that from yangqinghao.com. That would be through Emmett there, who is basically kind of like their Western source for teas. So I did check all the prices of these right before I hit record. So yes, the Chen Yuanhao Shanjiang, I think that's probably Teas We Like or Pu'er Guy, so one of those. And the Yangqing Hao, the boba tang, that's also from Emmett. And Mansang, Liquid Proust, or Pu'er Guy, maybe the Chen Yuanhao shop, which is ran by Paolo. So yes, thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all next time.